are off to episode number 5, which was, of course, backstabbed by board games. I feel like I was misled on this one a little bit. I was misled just a tad, just a smidge, because I was under the impression
why you say that?
I was under the impression when it mentioned board games that we were going to be talking about specific games that may be translated into, like, the whole motif so far has been video games. So, like, this one, I think
it's more game.
Yeah, I'm starting to. This is games. Yeah, I kind of got that about midway through when I realized the video game shit wasn't happening. I was like, oh, so we're taking game literally. Okay, all right. No, I just felt a little bamboozled. They did make mention that, like, for instance, Monopoly is also a mobile game and a video game. So I was like, oh, all right. They tried to tie it a little bit, but nope. They were talking about board games. More specifically, how fucking disgusting, how gross, how manipulative, how seedy and evil the board game industry truly is. And I thought to myself watching this episode, is there no shame? Is there no level of pettiness human beings will not sink to? There's so much bloodlust amongst humanity. That's this. I think I said this when we talked about the other episode when we were talking about the guy who created Atari. Well, he was just like, ooh, I like that idea. Mine now. And we were taking him to task for it. This whole episode was, oh, man, what a cool idea. Gimme. Everybody ripped off everybody. Everybody cut off everybody else's balls. Everybody else took shit, and they were literally murdering people over it. That was basically the gist of this entire fucking episode. Just a lot of shit going on. But I introduced you to the man, the myth, the legend of Charles Darrow, for who in the 1930s did exactly what we just described. Saw a wonderful idea and just decided, Jesus, this is such a great thing. I have to make money off of this shit. I've got to sell this. And I was surprised to learn some of the stuff that I learned in this particular episode. More importantly, the gentleman here by the name of Ralph Anspach. He was an economics professor in the Bay Area back in the 70s, and him and his family played Monopoly, much like you and me and the rest of the civilized world, and quickly realized as he played, this is not a very accurate game. This is not a very good depiction of what actual monopolies and actual economics really should be. I did not know that he created a game called Anti-Monopoly. That was an actual board game that you could buy and play. I immediately paused the video and went to Amazon and saw that bitch on Amazon. I was like, I can buy Anti-Monopoly right now? That's awesome. Yeah. That is awesome.
How much was it?
Cheap. I think the one that I saw on you know what? Let me not speak out of school here. I think I might still have it up. I was watching them today. In the midst of all of the other millions of things that I had to do today, I always find time. Monopoly. Yes, here we go. And it was $26. The real estate trading game for the 21st century. They upped it. They made it more modern. But the original one that guy was holding, he was just like, fuck Monopoly. This motherfucker just said, fuck Monopoly. And created a game that said anti-Monopoly on it. Son of a bitch still had Monopoly on the box. What a brilliant man. A brilliant man. But he actually went to war with the Parker brothers. Well, at this time in the 70s, it was just a company by name. But the Parker brothers, George, Edward, and Charles Parker, the originators of the Parker brothers, they created games like Rook, War in Cuba, and Klondike. Basically, if there was some sort of strife in the world where millions of people were dying, they turned it into a board game and made money off of it, which is a smart boy. Lizzie McGee. is our inventor here. She is the true originator of the Monopoly game. Although there have been many iterations, which is another problem with board games, because a lot of these board games were created many, 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 many fucking moons ago. And so they've seen many, many, many iterations. I used to make the joke all the time that when we used to go to Atlantic City, I said, oh, look, all of the streets here in Atlantic City, they look like Monopoly streets. I always thought it was the other way, that Atlantic City was naming their streets after Monopoly shit. I didn't realize that when Lizzie McGee, made this game, it was very easily customizable. She didn't really sell the game. She just kind of made the game for herself and for people who had asked for it. And then there was a game, the one that Charles introduced to the world, out there for sale, when people realized we don't really need to buy the fucking game to play it. We'll just get some cardboard out, get some markers going, make our own little boxes, get some dice going. And so people just made their own little makeshift Monopolies at home. And one in particular, the Quakers, who lived in Atlantic City, they made their own Monopoly game, and they made their board game with the streets on theirs. And for whatever reason, that was the popular version, the one with the Atlantic City streets on it. I was like, that's it? That's all that it took to make that happen? But Lizzie's game was not called Monopoly. Lizzie's game was called the Landlord's Game. There was some really grimy shit happening back then. There's a lot of people. And I love
but hers wasn't necessarily grimy. Hers was made for educational purposes.
Yeah, it was trying to give you a real idea.
How money hungry people were.
Yeah.
Or how money hungry people could be. That was like the whole point of her game,
right? And it was supposed to be it was supposed to be an illustration of what that's like. All it really did was give people an excuse to actually do it.
And I like the way, I think you made mention to it earlier about the anti-monopoly. I thought it was hilarious when he was like, there were two versions of this game.
Yeah.
There was a monopoly version where it's like, everyone against each other, kind of like a free for all. And there was another one that was kind of like all of us against the system and like trying to fight against it.
Yeah,
and,
sticking it to the man.
They were like, nah, I'd rather be the slumlord.
Yeah.
I don't want to work with you. I want to take you down.
Yeah.
He literally said like verbatim, like people found it more fun to bankrupt each other than it was to help build each other up.
Yep.
They're like, nah, fuck this.
What could be better than making sure you have no money at all?
Absolutely.
Was the way that the guy. It's not so much I want to win. I need everyone around me to lose. I want everyone around me to just have nothing. Nothing. I wrote this down because I thought this was an interesting conversation to have outside of the actual episode, because we went through this before when we were talking again. I refer back to the Atari episode. When it came down to that argument in court about the video game patent, right? When they were having that discussion about likeness and copyrights, these board games were developed long before the Atari, like long before any of this video game stuff was even a dream. And we're running into this whole episode is essentially just wiping their asses with the concept of copyright and likeness. This is all people during Prohibition, some of which in the 1800s, where they're just coming up with ideas. And then people either just ripping it completely or doing the Manhattan Project idea. Where they go, I'll give you a couple bucks for it, so you feel like you're compensated. But these people know exactly what this thing is going to be worth. It's when people. That's like when people say, "Well, they stole the Isle of Manhattan from the Indians. They didn't steal it; they bought it." Come on. If you exchange money whilst holding a gun to someone's head, you didn't buy it from anybody. You still stole the fucking thing. I take you to this situation here. So Lizzie McGee is the one who started the ball rolling on all of this. And I wrote this down because the shit was funny, the way that they painted this picture. That Lizzie McGee's father, had a strong father. He stood up for women's rights. He was anti-slavery. I like how just being against slavery at that time was like a trailblazing thing. Like it sets him apart. He stands out. All these other motherfuckers totally into slavery, but this guy This guy saw something, This guy had a little humility to him. He's like, no. I think it's unfair what they're doing to the coloreds. He's not for it. So Lizzie didn't believe people should. Oh yeah, that was like the lifestyle of that family. Lizzie didn't believe like people should own things, like they shouldn't own land, things that were close to nature or whatever. And so she really didn't get the recognition that she deserved for the original concept of the game the game itself. And then I wrote this down. Henry George is another name that came up. He was an author who wrote in Progress and Poverty. It was about poverty and monopolies. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. This game is a living, breathing embodiment of what capitalism really was like at that time. It was like classism times like a million back then. Like when you were rich, every day you just got richer, and it seems like if you were poor, every day you just got poorer. It's almost like middle class didn't really exist at that time. You either had a lot of shit or you had almost literally fucking nothing.
Yep.
And people just went through that. And I wrote that down too, what you just said a second ago. The landlord's game was invented to show how terrible it was to have a terrible landlord. And for that time period, Lizzie tried to get a patent on the game, which is interesting because they said they wouldn't give it to her simply because she was a woman. So when she filled out her paperwork, she filled it L.J. Maggie, which is her last name. And everyone just assumed that it was Larry. I kept calling her Larry, that her name was Larry. But she just used her initials instead, and she finally got it. Many, many, many moons later. 2 rules to anti-monopoly, and Monopoly rule set, the one you just explained a second ago. You can play Monopoly or you can destroy Monopoly. One or the other there. But the cardboard customization was hilarious because they had pictures of it. They were like the way that it was just crudely drawn, And then Charles came along. He used his tablecloth. So the first Monopoly game that you can consider, I guess, official, because that was the one that sold, that was the one that was being released to the public, was actually a circular board. It was a circle, and it had all the different attributes to it, and it was the Quakers that added. Apparently, before they added fixed incomes to the boxes, when you were landing on pieces, you were negotiating money. I can't even imagine what that would have. Can you imagine paying $1,000 in rent on Baltic Avenue? I would have swung on somebody. He's like, I landed on Baltic. I almost got Boardwalk, but I got around Go. I'm at Baltic. All right, that'll be $1,000. That'll be a who? What now? $1,000, bitch. You're on fucking Baltic. You don't own Venter or any of these high priced fucking places. This isn't a railroad. What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, I can see people I can see people getting stabbed over that shit. Jesus Christ, Mediterranean. So we have the Atlantic City customization made fixed numerical auctioning, and the city remains on the board to this day. So Monopoly, personally, I'm not a fan of Monopoly. One of the things I don't feel like they really hit home on for as far as this game goes, this game takes forever to fucking play. It takes a long fucking time to play Monopoly. You get 2 people playing, you might get a decent run out of it. You get 3, 4, 5 players, y'all better fucking, you're in for the night, bro. You're not going anywhere. And everyone's cheating, there's a portion of the game that's debated to this day, the negotiation part of it. Because normally you land on a piece, you give them the money that you have. The idea is that you go bankrupt, you lose. You leave the game until everybody else plays, until we're down to the 1 player. That's the rules of the game. Nobody ever plays it by the rules of the fucking game. People start negotiating. I'll give you 200 now, and then when I go around the board again, I'll give you another 200. They start like negotiating. We're never gonna end this game. No one's ever gonna go broke. Jesus Christ. I think you've played it this way, where there's like, 100 or 200 or some sort of fucking numerical figure under the free parking.
Oh yeah.
So you slip the money in under the fucking free parking, and then this dude is about to go broke. All he needs to do is fucking land on that yellow, and I got his bitch ass. He's done for it. He's out, and then he lands on free parking. He's back in the game. Oh, fuck. We're never getting out of here. Or the shit talking people do when you go to jail, but they're just visiting. The demoralization of it. It's like, oh, I'm just passing through, motherfucker. On my way to St. Charles Place. Fuck you. God damn, I hate that game. And listening to the way that it was created made me hate it even fucking more. For fuck's sake.
Unironically, it's funny how they pretty much damn near Monopoly gamed her out of like not causing a problem.
They monopolized Monopoly.
They called Big Daddy out of retirement. He went in there.
He looked like one of those monocle motherfuckers.
This property. I'll let you sell some of your property on my property, and then I'll give you some money. I'm like, okay. Slipped her 500 bones. 500. And then literally buried her games in a catalog that no one ever saw. So it was like she was just deleted from the fucking thing, and they got everything. They got rid of the problem. They literally monopolied her out of whatever she could have had if she actually fought it.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
And then we move on to another board game that I don't like. Maybe that's why this wasn't my favorite episode, because I'm just like, oh, I remember this one. I hated this one too. We move on to a colorful board filled with tiles of letters and numbers. Scrabble. Scrabble was the fun version of IQ. Apparently, back in the day, an IQ test was just loads of fucking fun. Just loads of it. Everyone just taking an IQ test. You only need to fail one of those motherfuckers to be scarred for life. And everyone just wanted to see how smart they were. And of course, my main man, Alfred Butts. Alfred Butts. Even in the show, they were like, all right, go ahead, laugh, get it out of your system. Alfred Butts was an author. And he was the main inventor of what would become Scrabble. This motherfucker took letters and was just like, oh man, we need word games. He thought that in his head. He goes, you know what the world needs? Word games. We need more word games.
Well, to be fair,
it's the time period, I know.
If everyone is talking, like, if the thing to do is be smart, what better fucking game than a game of words?
Ooh.
Why just be pretentious to yourself on a test score when you can be pretentious in front of 3 other players?
Let's get as many people into this room as possible so I can.
I want to flex this brain in front of everybody.
If my brain was a man, he'd be hung. I want to flex and let the whole world know I'm the smartest motherfucker in this room. And the guy, what I just said his fucking name a second ago. That's right, Alfred Butts. He had a strategy. He learned how frequent certain letters were. Like, as an example, they gave E is one of the most used letters in the entire English language, and then Z being the less frequent one. So that determined the numerical points for each tile. You spell a word with more usable more usable letters, you get a certain amount of points. If you're able to squeeze in letters with more rare words, like a Z or a Q or a W or something, you'll get some extra points. So it made it more challenging and made it more skillful. The more words that you know, the more points that you're scoring. And if you haven't fallen asleep from that description just yet, just know that his version of the game was called Lexicos, which is kind of a badass name if you think about it. I actually liked it, but when I heard that, I liked it better than Scrabble. But, it is what it is. But James Bruno, who, I got to admit, first of all, cool name, James Bruno. Secondly, he was a farmer. He just was on a farm. It was like, hey, this game is cool. Do you mind if I sell it? And Mr. Butts was like, go for it, man. Do your thing. How the fuck did he transition from farming to game development? What the fuck is that?
That's the one thing that's kind of throwing me off a little bit, like to some of these stories. Like, I'm not saying the stories are like not real or whatever, but like, I just find it really weird that I don't know. I just find it really weird that like all these growing up myself, I was always told like, who cares about like video games are a waste of time, yada 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 yada. But all these people who I would assume dislike gaming seems to just everyone's thinking about games.
Yeah.
It's a weird transition of games being on top of everyone's mind in a world where games aren't like what it's just hard for me to see like the way games are today. It's like so popular. Then it's like you're talking about the Great Depression.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, thinking about video games.
Well, they weren't during this time. They were thinking about the board games. Like they're in the middle of a depression, and they're customizing.
And that's where you said like your disconnect was too, right? Like, oh, you thought we were talking about game, but in the world of video games is just a genre of gaming,
right?
In general. So, but the thought that these people even had gaming on their mind is what's. Like, I'm talking long before the Blizzard days, long before that, when we're talking about the beginning of Monopoly and Operation and all this stuff, like, I'm blown away with how many game stores there were. Like, they have, like, I guess it was kind of a cross between, like, toy stores and game stores were kind of, like, one and the same.
Right.
They're not today, but, like, then they were kind of like one in the game. You can get your board games the same. There's like saw as like toys and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's what this is showing me. Like when it goes so back far in history is like, dude, gaming has always been like a thought.
Yeah,
it evolved later. But like even back in the day, people were trying to go home. Like, dude, I can't wait to go home and crack open the Monopoly. Like. Monopoly, the new board game just came out, dude. I got like 6 more hours. I got it early. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, I just thinking like I want to just go play Operation, dude.
Yeah, and you know what? You know what this shows me? You know what this actually not shows? You know what it proves to me? I think every generation has that group of people where they're like, games are for children. Oh, what a waste of time. Go out, touch grass, that kind of shit. What this proves to me, not shows me, but it proves to me, is something that I've always already thought. And I tell gamers this all the time. Maybe, I'm just going to throw it out there. Maybe those people are full of shit. Because all of these games, they were giving you an example, like for instance, Scrabble. We're on the Scrabble portion right now. They were overwhelmed when they sold 200 units for the week. They were overwhelmed. And the farmer, like, took a break. James Bruno took a break. He said, this is crazy. I got to take some time. He takes a week off. He comes back. There's an order for 2,500. From 1951 or 1952, I forgot what it was, they sold 200 and something, like 200,000 or some shit like that, units of Scrabble. In 2 years, in 1954, they were up to 4 million units sold. People were buying this shit.
Yep.
That crowd of it's a waste of time. Oh, it's this, it's that. They've always been the vocal minority for the most part since the beginning of just civilization. People have wanted to play. Remember how the episode opened? We saw actual artifacts, dice made of bone, right? Like dominoes made of bone. Gaming has been around since the caveman. It's all. Entertainment has always been a thing. That's why I always laugh when I hear people my age who were born in the 80s. It was like, we didn't need all that shit. I didn't need an iPad. I didn't need this. I didn't need that. I went outside. I just played. Right. You didn't need it. But if you would have been born in this era, or at the very least, I know for myself, if I would have been in the backyard or if I would have been at the local playground in 1987 and somebody would have dropped an iPad on me, I'd be all over that shit. What are you talking about? It would be what I would do all day, every day. So would you. Because gaming is fun. Gaming is fun. I don't consider myself a gamer. But I'm constantly playing mobile games. I'm on the Switch with my son. I'm on the Xbox for me. I'm always playing games. I play games at my job with the kids. I'm always playing games. Everyone is always playing games. So I'm never astonished when these people talk about how successful they got out of nowhere, especially when it comes to games like Monopoly, which we all know is a uber popular game, or Scrabble, which we're talking about now. I'm not fans of these games. I played them when I was a kid. I haven't played Scrabble in fucking forever, but I understand the concept of their success, especially the last one that we're going to talk about here, which was one you brought up already, which was Operation. And just to go a little further about how some shit just happens sometime, the guy who invented Operation, John Spinello, for all intents and purposes, he might be a nice guy, but he's fucking stupid. He's an idiot. And he stumbled upon $1 billion idea in the most imaginative way possible. Now, remember I told you before when last we spoke, the big Magnavox TVs, the big boxes. Okay? This dumb shit had a TV set in his house. This was years ago, obviously, back in the fucking 50s and 40s or whatever. No, maybe even before that. But he took a safety pin and started putting that shit in sockets to the fucking TV, and he got fucking electrocuted. And when he got electrocuted, he went, I got an idea for a game. Let's slightly electrocute everyone else. And it just, the concept of the things that he was putting together and touching the metal piece and giving it a charge so that he didn't quite get to the operation part yet with the fucking body and all that stuff. But he's the one who came up with that game when you have to move in certain directions with a piece of something and then you have to do it without hitting the side. And just the whole concept of that was him. He came up with that. And they said something that shocked me. I was stunned to my core. I didn't know this, that the game Operation, it's the bones and stuff like that you have to take out, and there's holes that are placed within the body of a person. The actual game board is a body of a person. I didn't know that shit had a name. Cavity Sam? I didn't know his name was Cavity Sam.
Oh, shit. No, I did not know that.
I didn't know that.
I wasn't a big player of that. I really disliked that game.
I disliked all the games that were on here. And I like board games, but none of the board games I liked were on this fucking thing. They were talking about Operation, and I hated it because the first time I ever played Operation, I was a child. And that fucking buzzer, the stress of having to get your little tiny fucking fingers in there, first of all, to grab hold of it. Because I would buzz just trying to fucking touch it. Then I would get it, and the fucking sweat and the pressure, like you were fucking taking out a bomb. That's
what it felt like.
I mean, my fucking palms are fucking sweaty, my feet are curling. I'm like trying to lift this motherfucker out of here, and I would flinch every fucking time, and my nerves couldn't take it. Fuck this game. Fuck everybody involved with this game. I'm good. It's like the game with the alligator teeth. You have to push the tooth down or it slams on your fucking hand. Like the pressure. I can't do the fucking pressure. I don't want to be in pain. And the lady in the video said it best. She goes, it was nerve-wracking because as a kid, when you would go in for the bone or whatever, and when you would pull it out, if you buzzed, that meant to you like the person died or something. You're like, God damn. I don't need that kind of pressure at the age of 7. I'm good.
It wasn't fun. I never enjoyed that game.
Nah. And
Not
then
even for a little bit.
The big ending for John, he was promised an opportunity at the company for inventing the game. They screwed him on that. He eventually did get the job. But then he goes in there and some fucking asshole goes banana sandwich and just starts shooting a bunch of people, and then he killed himself. And then he was like, yeah, that's when I quit. It's like, no kidding, John. Go for it. I'm with you. I don't know if I want to be in the business and motherfuckers is shooting each other in it. I'm straight.
Yeah. It's that cutthroat, man. That's what these people's livelihood, man. Even like, what was it? Not to double back again, but like the whole selling point of Monopoly where he went to them and was like, "Hey, I have this game." Who was it? What was it? That wasn't Hasbro. Who was the Monopoly publisher?
That the original guy, Charles Darrow.
No, the who was the
Oh, the
no
publisher. That was
the
Milton Bradley.
Milton Bradley. Damn it, yeah. So they were like, "No, fuck off." You know what I mean? Like, we don't want this.
Yeah.
And then they told the story out like they were at the point of pure bankruptcy, and they saw that this guy made changes and that he was actually selling them after he made the changes, and they're like, all right, we'll do a deal. Like when he came back to them, it was like, yo, do you want to do this? And it's like, but I say all that to like that's a point to the shooting thing. Like these are these people's way out of this depression.
Yeah.
This is peak. Like people's families are losing everything. People have no jobs. And meanwhile, you have these one or two people who like they even made mention that like people always say that depressions only affect the poor people, not the big companies. Especially like during COVID, they're like, oh, like the big companies will eventually make it through. The small companies are getting buried. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the big companies can just coast through it. And then when it spikes back up, they're off to the races. They're good. Even here, they're like, no, even the big companies were like pending going under. Like that's how bad it was. People needed something. And they saw the guy was making sales. So it was like, all right, fuck it, we'll give you a shot. And that people like if they weren't getting their way or they see that they were losing their opportunity, that's why it didn't surprise me. The guy came in and just fucking probably got wronged in some way, shape, or form. Came in, fucking lit them all up, knew his life was over, and just took his. And oddly enough, looked at that guy and was like, no, you're good, bro. And then just like walked out. Yo, me, I'd be like, all right, that's a sign. I'm just gonna go home. I'm packing up.
I'm good.
Do something else. I'm do something else.
I am good. I am absolutely good. So that was the board games. Not my favorite episode, but that's okay because in episode 6
it was a little boring.
Yeah, and you know what? We were saying that before when we did the Atari episode. It was like I enjoyed the history of that, and for this one, I was just like, didn't strike me the same as the other one did.
But I'm not a huge board game person.
Yeah,
I think if I was, I would have been interested in the history. I'm just kind of like indifferent. Like it was cool, don't get me wrong, but like I feel like the episode was way too long. I think if they would have done multiple board games and not just 2 board games, like I felt like they spent too much time on just 2. If they would have talked about other ones and how they intertwined, I think it would have been a little bit more interesting. But we were just talking about the 2, and I eventually got tired of it. I'm like, dude, when is this shit over, dude? What's the next thing?
Yeah.